The 3DS is 7 years old. Just absorb that thought for a second. Man, I remember when the first 3DS came out in 2011. I was just entering secondary school. Now I'm in my second year of college and the thing is still alive and kicking. Okay, well, depending on whose perspective it's from. Despite not reaching the extreme levels of sales that its predecessor once had, over the past 7 years, the 3DS has still managed to develop what is arguably Nintendo's most impressive handheld lineup. From action games and platformers to RPGs and simulators, there was practically no genre that evaded the 3DS's grasp. Add to that a robust indie lineup, virtual console, and social features, and you have one of Nintendo's best handheld systems to date. And then there was the 3D effect. Remember when it was the 3DS's main selling point when it first came out? Yeah, that was a thing that existed. When the 3DS was first revealed in 2010, 3D technology was practically the gimmick of the year. Many companies tried to capitalize on the 3D hype train that Avatar set in motion during the previous year by bringing in 3D televisions that are totally the next mainstream thing because you can now finally bring this immersive experience into your own living room. Well, we all know how that turned out, but back then Nintendo was also thinking of having a slice of the three-dimensional pie. But did you see those glasses? They're clunky, uncomfortable, and so 2000s. So the folks over at Nintendo devised a secret weapon, the parallax barrier. I'm gonna spare you the technical babble, but it was pretty much a layer on top of an LCD that split the image into two, with one for each eye, allowing for a 3D display without any special glasses. Because basically, the screen is the glasses. I mean, it's no hologram or anything, but it was a very convincing effect. When the 3DS was first reviewed as a handheld with glasses-free 3D graphics, people were definitely intrigued. If the 3DS was your first experience with glasses-free 3D, it was probably the most mind-blowing thing ever. I remember when I was in a game store seeing some guy getting his brand new 3DS set up, so I snuck in, took a look at the AR Games logo spinning on the home menu and just went, "What?" I got my first 3DS in July of 2011 alongside Pilotwings Resort. I still treasure it deeply, but man has it seen better days. I really need to get your circle pad replaced. What even is this? I was completely fine with flying a plane, shooting faces, and fighting virtual dragons on my 3DS for nearly 4 months. But at that time, there wasn't really much content in the 3DS's initial library. I mean, let's take a look at the first party games Nintendo chose to launch the 3DS with. Yeah, that's it. I mean, sure, they're not bad games, Pilotwings especially, but as launch titles they weren't exactly on the same level as the pick up and play multiplayer appeal of Wii Sports or the grand scope of Breath of the Wild. They're more or less just small fun distractions / tech demos of the 3D technology of the 3DS because that was the main selling point at the time. Personally, I'm fine with having smaller games like these as launch titles, but in reality it just didn't entice enough people to buy a 3DS at launch. Also, if you've tried some early 3DS games at some point, the 3D effect was usually really uncomfortable. Okay, a lot of people find the 3D uncomfortable, but 3DS games in 2011 were especially guilty because the 3D effect was often way too intense. In Pilotwings, for example, the background extends far into the depths of the screen, making it harder to focus on different objects. And you also have to keep your head stable while looking at the screen, or you will get ghosting in your images, causing further headaches. Nowadays, the new 3DS models have head tracking functions for the 3D effect, which makes them easier to feel, but back in 2011, the 3D effect wasn't sitting well with a lot of people. Anyway, back to the games. Suffice to say, Nintendo's offerings were bare bones, and even on the third-party side of things, the most well-received game was a port of Super Street Fighter 4. So, a mediocre launch lineup for a system that cost $250 at launch. That will surely turn out just fine. 3DS sales plummeted after its first couple of weeks on the market, and not helping things was Nintendo's two big releases in the next few months. 3D versions of Star Fox 64 and The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. Fantastic N64 remasters, sure, but that's all they were. N64 games that most people have probably played before. And over on the eShop, you had oh snap! Urban Champion in 3D, baby! Oh, and by the way, does anyone remember Freakyforms? Yeah, that was a thing that existed. Basically, for several months, people looked at the 3DS's price point and lineup and went, I'll wait and see if it's really worth it, which seemed to signify the start of the well-known death spiral. No customers due to a lack of games, no developer support due to a lack of customers, and no games due to a lack of developers. And late Nintendo president Satoru Iwata was not going to let that happen. The 3DS still had potential, and he knew Nintendo had to crank out quality software fast. But first, boom, a gigantic price cut from $250 to $170. Don't worry early adopters, you guys get GBA games that will never be released on the 3DS ever again. And then at E3 that year, bang, just great original games one after the other. Mario Kart 7, Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon, Kid Icarus Uprising, Paper Mario Sticker Star, okay maybe not that one. But spearheading off this fantastic software was Super Mario 3D Land, the key title that would finally reverse the 3DS's fate. At first glance it might seem kinda weird. The last 3D Mario game at that point was Super Mario Galaxy 2, one of the most critically acclaimed 3D Mario games to date. Was it really wise to follow that masterpiece up with a watered down point A to point B 3D platformer? Well, turns out less is more in this case. Continuing Iwata's Blue Ocean strategy, which attempted to capture casual non-gamers into gaming, the development team of 3D Land focused on a single keyword when planning the game: reset. Sure, you could just put Mario Galaxy on a 3DS and call it a day, but Nintendo knew that this would result in a clash against the 3DS's intended audience. 3D Mario games have gotten bigger and more complex over the years, but it has also become somewhat overwhelming for casual players. Say what you want about the new Super Mario Bros. Series, but they always sell like hotcakes because to the majority of players, 2D Mario is the type of Mario game that they're most familiar with. For them, dipping their toes into a 3D Mario game after playing 2D games for so long would probably feel something like, a DVD for beginners. I know how a Mario game works, I don't need that. Whoa, wait, what is this gravity thing? Oh god, it feels so weird. You can spin enemies now? Oh god, how do you jump past these? It's so hard. You can do a long jump by what? Crouch and jump? That's not a long jump though, what is this? There's motion controls? Ah dang it, stop falling off the edge all the time. Wait, what are these bosses? How do you kill these bosses? Oh god, help me, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? So the development team decided to go back to basics and make a 3D Mario game that can serve as an introduction for casual players to get accustomed to controlling Mario in a 3D space. As they said, if Galaxy 2 was like a luxurious imperial feast, then 3D Land is like a hamburger, a lighter meal that you can just gobble down. Almost every recognizable aspect of mainline Mario games is back in 3D Land. Mario stomps on enemies, gets mushrooms and flowers from blocks, and grabs the flagpole at the end of each level. As Miyamoto says, it's a 3D Mario game that plays like a 2D Mario game. Run and jump, get to the goal, simple as that, no scouring big worlds fulfilling tons of mission objectives for collectibles, at least for now. The power-ups help ease the difficulty for new players as well, especially the Tanuki suit with its floating ability making platforming a total breeze, and the invincibility leaf and P-wing which are pretty self-explanatory. And if you're a more skilled player, you can utilize advanced moves like the rolling long jump, or combining wall jumps with flutter kicks to get to hidden areas, or blaze through levels. And the post-game challenges with cosmic clone speedrun challenges and whatnot? It's good! Look at it! It's good. In fact, with its level-based structure and densely packed stages, 3D Land is just a great game to blast through and replay in general, which totally fits the 3DS's pick up and play nature. I played it so much that it's fun for me to just hop into a level and get into the rhythm of where I should go and when. Even its sequel, 3D World on the Wii U, didn't quite have the same feeling for me, as all the levels are much more expansive to accommodate multiplayer, which makes playing them alone feel empty. Overall, in terms of game design, Super Mario 3D Land pretty much has something for everyone, being both accessible to casual players as well as being fun and rewarding to fully complete for the pros. And you can still see this design philosophy in future games. Even in Mario Odyssey, where the collectathon structure returns, jumps are de-emphasized in favor of throwing your cap on literally everything, and things like easy power moons and assist mode are there to help new players get through the main game more easily. And yeah, I think I'm done here. That's why 3D Land did so well on the 3DS. What? Oh, right, the 3D. It was in the name of the game and I still forgot about it, right. Super Mario 3D Land is one of the very few 3DS games I know of that utilizes the 3D effect to a genius degree by integrating it directly into the gameplay. Nintendo acknowledged that judging distance in a 3D platformer is often a challenge to some people, even with a drop shadow as assistance. So using 3D ended up actually improving the player experience, rather than being something that the player will turn on, say, oh it looks cool, then turn it off again. But there are even more intricate design choices in the 3D effect beyond just making judging distances easier. Remember the issues I mentioned with an intense 3D effect in early 3DS games? Nintendo was finally aware of those issues and talked about how they tried to make the 3D effect in 3D Land as natural as possible in the 2012 GDC talk. And it all revolves around a concept known as the reference plane. To put it simply, the reference plane is the level of 3D depth at the surface of the screen, of which there would be barely any. Nothing pops out and nothing pops in. And so, images located on the reference plane tend to be the clearest and mostly free of any ghosting effects from tilting the screen. So, if most of what the player sees was placed right on the reference plane, then they could avoid extremely intense 3D effects. The development team actually learned this from Miyamoto showing them gameplay of another title, Mario Kart 7, which was also in development at the same time. Miyamoto played the prototypes of Mario Kart 7 and 3D Land and noticed Mario Kart 7 looked less blurry. That's because in that game, the player's cart was located on the reference plane, so it wouldn't get blurry easily even with the subtle movements of the player's head. Also, there were other rules in place to avoid things like platforms or coins randomly popping off the screen and disorienting the player's vision. The camera is usually fixed and cannot be freely rotated so that other objects wouldn't get in the camera's way. The range of the 3D depth effect was also significantly shortened so that it wouldn't put as much of a strain on the player's eyes. You can still see these design decisions in later 3DS games, and it goes to show that implementing a comfortable use of 3D graphics goes beyond just enabling a turn-on 3D option. Also, major bonus points to the 3D illusion bonus areas. They might be a tad too gimmicky, but they're still pretty awesome. Anyway, that's what I felt were the ingredients that led to Super Mario 3D Land becoming the definitive killer app for the 3DS. A casual, friendly approach to 3D Mario with a fantastic implementation of the 3DS's gimmick. Nintendo advertised the heck out of the game, placing a huge playground with demo stations right in the middle of Times Square, even giving out mushroom pizzas and selling the game early exclusively at the event. This nostalgia bomb certainly worked, as 3D Land became the fastest selling portable Mario game up to that point after it launched. And of course, games like Mario Kart, Pokemon, and many more continue to push the 3DS towards old and new players alike, cementing the 3DS as a platform not only defined by its gimmick, but also its diverse library of games. So even if you mostly play your 3DS games with the 3D graphics off because they're uncomfortable or whatever, I think it's good to take some time and appreciate the work that Nintendo put into designing some of their games to take full advantage of 3D, and how they've refined it over the 3DS's life, practically averting its fate in the process. While 3D is no longer the primary focus of the 3DS as seen with the slowly dropping support for it, I still think the feature has some merit to it. And games like Super Mario 3D Land just go to show that designing specifically for 3D graphics can make them a bit more than just pretty eye candy. Wow, this video was finally done. If you didn't realize, this video was stuck in limbo for like 9 months, so I'm glad that it's done. Thank you for watching, and especially to my Patreon supporters that you can see on screen right now. And as for me, I'm just gonna leave.